Hey there, friends and enemies. JoPaWrites here once again. And today we have another tier list for you guys. This is going to be Destiny 2 full raid tier list that I am very excited to bring because I know everyone has their opinions on which raid is the best, and I'm going to share mine because this is going to be, quite honestly, the best tier list you'll find on the subject. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Helps me out tremendously. Shows you want to see more content like this. We put up tier lists every week right now. We're having a lot of fun with that, so definitely thank you guys for all the support on those videos. Also, I do these live Tuesday mornings, 10 a.m. So swing by, check them out, and appreciate all the love. So jumping into it, I'm a day one Destiny player. I've played every single raid that there is. I have my own feelings on them, and I really wanted to dive into this and show where I stand on these raids because a lot of it, and I've mentioned this on Twitter before, a lot of it comes down to the raid team that you had at the time, the memories you made, the experiences you had. Because if you played some of these day one, then they hit different than if you didn't play it for like 6 months or so. That's like a different scenario. So jumping into that, I think this is going to be quite challenging, but probably a little bit controversial too, because I think you're not going to agree with where some of my standings are. Vault of Glass. Now, this one is the most nostalgia heavy for me personally. It was my first raid-like experience in any game. I had never played an MMO before. I had never played anything like Destiny. So jumping into Vault of Glass for the first time was such a surreal experience, and I remember it vividly going through the door and the entranceway for the first time, and it was just probably my favorite gaming moment, or one of the top 5 gaming moment for me of all time. And because it was the first, because of my memories, because I think it's still one of the best raids and my favorite raids to run. I ran it a bunch now in Destiny 2 that it's here. I'm gonna actually put it at A tier. If we're putting only one God tier, that's not gonna be it. But this is right there. This is like right below the top slot, right? Because I love this raid. I acknowledge that it's not a perfect raid as far as mechanics go, but for me personally, it's one of my favorites of all time. I absolutely love it, and I would play this over and over again, no matter if there's good rewards or not. And I feel like that does play a part in it. The weapons, the loot pool, I think is really good in Vault of Glass as well. The OG Fatebringer was one of the most sought after weapons in all of Destiny, so I think that does play a part as well. Leviathan. I enjoyed Leviathan more than most. I'm going to put that at B tier. Now, I do think they tried a lot of different things with Leviathan going into Destiny 2, and I liked that a lot. And ultimately, I think that it was a good raid with some interesting mechanics. And I do miss running it, honestly. I'm kind of sad that it's not available to be run right now. And hopefully they do bring it back in the future because I would run it again. The loot pool was solid. At the time, Midnight Coup, Sins of the Past, lots of great weapons. I did enjoy this quite a bit. Now, I'm not putting anything below C tier for this because I don't think any of the raids fall below this, but I'll give my reasoning for that. The unknown tier, I'm not even going to need that because I've run all of these and enjoyed them. Crown of Sorrows. Now, this one is hard because I like this one a lot. But again, I can't put it on Vault of Glass level. I think it's B tier. And the reason being is it's a raid layer length. It's not as long. I mean, it's a full raid, but it's just not as long. And I feel like as much as I personally enjoyed it, I don't think it left the same amount of memories or the same impact that something like a Vault of Glass did for me personally. Crota's End. Let's see. man, I think it's gonna be all B tier if I'm not careful. Let's see. I'm gonna go B tier for that one as well. So Crota's End is one of my favorites for pure nostalgia. It's the only raid that I ever did fully flawless. It is a fantastic raid, to be honest. As far as, but it just felt so short. Ultimately, like I thought the initial encounter was one of my favorites of all time. Um, it's just beatable in strike level time by the end of, like, after a few months in Destiny, you could beat it so fast that it just doesn't hold up as well as a lot of the other raids for me personally. Even though I remember, cheesing Crota, people unplugging their internet at like, there was so many crazy things. It was wild time, and the loot. I will say the loot in Crota's End was fantastic. The rocket launcher was amazing. Hunger Crota, they had a lot of really good loot there, so I feel like for that reason, I do keep it at B tier. Deep Stone Crypt. It's the A tier for me. The impact Deep Zone Crypt had, I think, was really good. It going up into space for the first time was amazing. Some of the way they did the mechanics I thought were really good. Now, of all the Destiny 2 raids, this is probably one of my favorites, and including raid layers. And I think ultimately the designs for the encounters was really good. The aesthetics were really good. Overall, this is one of the best raids to happen in Destiny, in my opinion. Scourge of the Past. This one was fun. I did enjoy it. But I'm putting it C tier. I know some people like this more than others. I don't like... I think it was fine, but nothing... It doesn't leave the same impact for me as a lot of these other raids, and that's why. I feel like Crown of Sorrow, I enjoyed the boss fight and the boss room a bit more, personally. The tanks was cool, but like I just didn't enjoy it, and maybe again that comes down to the team that I had. I say I don't enjoy it. I loved every raid in Destiny history, but I just less so than some of the others on this list personally. But yeah, so that's where that one's gonna fall for me. I do, like I said, I'm a fan of all the raids, but some of them just don't hit the same. All right, this one is going to be controversial because I know a lot of people love Wrath, but for me, it's okay. I just never, it just never hit the same for me as it did for a lot of other people. It had some of the encounters were amazing, right? Obviously, chasing the big trash compactor or whatever everyone called it back in the day, that was a lot of fun. It had some good mechanics. It ultimately was a really fun raid, but it just didn't have the same memories for me, and that for that reason it drops down just a little bit. I think of all the raids on this list, it's my least completed raid because at the time I just did not have the right crew. I did not enjoy running it all that much. I do hope it comes back because I'd be very interested to see if it's in Destiny 2, if that changes my opinion on it. But for me personally, just not up there with the rest of these raids as far as my own personal memories. And again, I don't remember a single piece of loot from that weapon besides the Outbreak. So that's part of a problem for me too, is like I remember when I initially ran it, I just didn't fall in love with any of the weapons. So that made a big deal for me personally, because as much as I do like the raid, having loot that I really want to chase is super important as well, and I feel like that was a little bit lacking with Wrath of the Machine. Garden of Salvation. This one's tough, man. I do enjoy Garden. I think it's got some interesting mechanics. But I think ultimately, I gotta drop it down. B? Nah, it's gonna be C tier. And unfortunately, the reason is, as much as I enjoyed it, because of all the issues that it had day one and even for the first couple months, I feel like it lost steam so quickly that going back to it now, it's a fun raid, but it's not going to hit the same as when you first dropped it. And it's very unfortunate because I think design wise, it's aesthetically, it's a good raid. I just, overall, I don't like it as much as some of the other raids personally. And I just think that it's one of those raids that if it went away tomorrow would not be missed as much as something like Deep Zone Crypt. And that's the unfortunate part for me. Now, again, caveat is I love all these raids. So I would run any single one of these raids any day of the week, but if I'm ranking them where they stand for me, that's where Garden of Salvation lies. And yeah, overall, I think it's a raid that I wish was just a little bit cleaner and had less issues surrounding it. Plus, I mean, the loot pool again. The loot pool is just not my favorite overall. Like now, I think we're starting to see some people recognize some of the stuff was good. Divinity, I really enjoyed having the Divinity run. I think is a good thing. Like I like having the non-random raid drops at some point, like for some of the raids, not all of them, but we'll see. King's Fall. I know this is a heavy favorite for a lot of people and potentially coming back next year at some point, but for me personally, King's Fall is one that I'm going to put right here at A tier. Now, I don't put it at the top level only because there's only one that will stay there for me personally. But King's Fall was a lot of fun. The aesthetic, it was dark. It was you had the jumping puzzle. You had good mechanics. I actually liked the sisters fight before Crota a little bit better. But I do like that the Crota boss fight is different than a lot of the other boss fights we get throughout Destiny history. And because of that, that's why I think it stays at A tier. It's one of my favorite raids. I would run it over and over again at the time. I probably jumped off the ships 1,000 times in my total runs there. So I could not play Warlock in King's Fall. It was literally impossible for me. I did not understand the jump mechanics. I missed every ship I tried for, but ultimately, I think it's a great raid, and I think I hope it comes back because I feel like it would be a good addition to Destiny 2 in the future. Spire Stars. This is a lot of people will put this way down here, like D tier. But for me, I think it's a B. I think it's a good raid. I think the problem was it was challenging for a raid layer, so it was kind of weird having that. Like, okay, it's short, it's quick to get to the boss fight, but once you get to the boss fight, it could take you a long time if you didn't have the mechanics down. Ultimately, for me personally, I thought it was not that bad. I completed it a few times, but ultimately. It's like the mechanics were more interesting for me for this than a lot of other raids that I've done, and for that reason, that's why I put it a little higher than most people would, because I really enjoyed the boss fight more than a lot of other people do, I think. So B tier, solid for me, nothing crazy, but it's weird. I'm looking at the list though, and it's weird. I think I'm gonna drop it down to C actual. And the reason for that, it doesn't, I'm like comparing it to these ones, and it just doesn't sit on the same level for me personally. That same thing for Eater. Eater is something that I feel like it's a good raid. It's fun. I wish the raid layers were back, because if you had the pinnacle loot on rotation, or if you had more, like if you do it like you do Grandmasters, where you have like the raid layers, you can earn the time lost or whatever you call them, like better gear for these raids, I feel like they'd be played a lot. And something like Eater is so easy, ultimately, that a lot of people would be able to complete this no problem. There's a reason that you 2-man or you see a lot of people low manning Eater Worlds, because it's probably outside of Crota's End, it's probably one of the easier raids to do, and it was so easy to farm as well. Ultimately, once you got a decent crew. Now, obviously, there's only one remaining. You know where this is going to go. And I feel like aesthetically, encounter wise, loot wise, everything, Last Wish is the king for me. And doing Riven legit is one of the best encounters in all of Destiny. And so many people only know how to cheese it. That's wildly unfortunate. But Last Wish, I mean, the loot looked clean, the raid looked clean, the encounters were a lot of fun. Carrying the heart after beating Riven is crazy, right? Just the whole setup is fantastic for me, and for me, that's why I think nostalgia aside, Last Wish, in my opinion, is the best raid in all of Destiny history, and it's not particularly close. I think some of these other raids are really, really good, but just none of them compare to Last Wish. And again, I have had some great teams to run Last Wish, but I would run that raid still to this day over and over if I found a crew to do so, because I think it's the best raid in all of Destiny history. So let me know if you agree, if you disagree. Comment down below where you would put some of these raids. That's the best tier list that you'll find on the subject. Let me get out of the way a little bit. So yeah, I think ultimately right there. Yeah, I think ultimately Last Wish is S tier. The rest of them are really good. If we would have designed this list a little bit differently, maybe it would have kind of gone like if we would have had an S tier instead of just the only one God tier, maybe that plays a factor into it. But overall, I think this is the best list you'll find on the subject. My name is JoPaWrites. I hope you enjoyed the video. Catch you all later.